From KRIS 6 News, this is Decision 2016.
Good evening and happy primary day.
There's just so much to tell you about in our election coverage, so let's get right to it. Here are some of the big races that we're covering tonight. They include the race for U.S. Representative District 27. You have incumbent Blake Farenthold on your left and retired Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Greg Deeb that are vying for that seat on the Republican side. And on the Democratic side, you have federal courthouse security guard Raul Barrera, retired photographer Ray Madrigal, and computer science teacher Rain Rosh. Rosh, by the way, is from Wharton County.
Another race we're covering is the race for district attorney, where we have criminal defense attorney Mark Gonzalez and incumbent Mark Skirka. The winner from that race will face James Gardner, who is unopposed on the Republican side. Another hot race is the race for Nueces County Sheriff. On the Democratic side, we have Corpus Christi police officer Jose Olivares and former Sheriff Larry Olivares Sr. No relation there. They are going head to head. The winner of this race will take on incumbent Sheriff Jim Kalen in November. Kalen is also unopposed in the primary.
And we have a full slate for the County Commissioner's Precinct 3 race. There's 6 candidates in that race. They include county employee Jesus Gonzalez, Nueces County Jailer Joe Gonzalez, former City Councilman and CCISD School Board member John Mares, John Martinez, former court-at-law judge, retiree Dick Mitchell, and former Nueces County Democratic Chair Joel Mumford. The winner of this race is going to replace Oscar Ortiz. Ortiz is retiring after representing Precinct 3 for more than 20 years. And for the biggest race of the night, our presidential candidates on the Republican side are Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, John Kasich, Ben Carson, and Elizabeth Gray. And for the Democrats, it's Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders. Now, of course, none of this would be possible without you. You spoke, you voted, so today is all about you. And that's why we want to know if there were any problems at the polls. And for that, we're going to head on over to Priscilla Torres, who's live at Blanchmore Elementary. So, Priscilla, were there any issues today?
Stephanie, there really weren't any major issues or concerns with the technology portion of the voting today, but the voters that we spoke with said they are more concerned with the places designated for them to vote. We went to several local schools today. Some have been designated voting locations for quite some time. Others, like Blanchmore Elementary, it was the first year, and some voters weren't happy with that because they said there was a lot of traffic and didn't feel it was safe for the students. We spoke with the Nueces County Clerk, KRIS, who says it's not up to the county to decide where parties go to vote.
For instance, if their location has changed and they didn't know, remember these are the primaries, so the parties run this. So they chose the polling locations, they chose the judges, they trained their judges, they trained the clerks. One thing I would like to do is make sure that we train the judges and the clerks for the next primary.
So you still have time to get out and vote as long as you're in line by 7 o'clock tonight. Reporting live, Priscilla Torres, KRIS 6 News.
Priscilla, thanks. The Democratic primary race for Nueces County District Attorney is one we are following very closely. Mark Gonzalez again is squaring off against the current District Attorney, Mark Skirka. Andrew Ellison spent some time with both men today. Andrew joins us live from outside the courthouse with more.
Good evening, Bart, Stephanie. As you can imagine, both candidates spent the day doing some last-minute campaigning, and truly, both of these men are very different. They're from opposite sides of the criminal justice system, if you will. Mark Skirka has a prosecutor's background, and Mark Gonzalez is, and has always been, a defense attorney. From tattoos to allegations of hidden evidence, this race has had it all. Skirka claims Gonzalez has a bias.
When you have not guilty tattooed across your chest, that speaks volumes about what your mindset is. And the mindset of a DA should be to go after and prosecute criminals.
But Gonzalez says he'll do just that, vowing to personally try a case every month. He says his experience as a defense attorney makes him an ideal candidate.
I poke holes in their cases every week. So what better person to fill holes than a person who wins and is successful every single week.
He adds the DA's office needs better management, citing multiple accusations from other defense attorneys that the state withheld evidence in some of their clients' cases. Skirka says it's never done on purpose, citing a backlog of cases.
And when you process 12 to 14,000 cases a year, sometimes things get lost in the shuffle.
He highlights 29 years of experience as his greatest strength.
I know that office inside and out. I've tried numerous cases over there.
As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, tonight's winner will face off against Republican candidate James Gardner in the general election. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And got to say, voter turnout was pretty big this year. We saw that with those early voting numbers that we told you about last night.
Almost double from what they were 4 years ago.
That's exactly right. Twice the number of registered voters in Nueces County cast their ballots early compared to 2012. And joining us live on the set to discuss this and much, much more is David Smith. You remember him. He's with A&M Corpus Christi.
And let's start with a local race here, Congressional District 27. It's been held for a while by Republican Blake Farenthold. He's facing off against challenger Greg Deeb. Some believe that Greg Deeb has a pretty good shot at this. Do you agree? And also, do you feel like whoever wins tonight is a guaranteed victory in November?
I think there is a good chance that Greg Deeb will overcome Blake Farenthold. A lot of it's related to the fact that veterans are upset and they really want to hear a voice, and they want someone who looks like them and represents them from the veterans' point of view. Now, I won't say that whoever wins the Republican primary will be the automatic pick, but I will say there's a better than 60% chance that whoever the Republican is, that will be the pick in the general election.
Due to the boundaries and the way it's drawn currently for 27.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we also want to stay on the local races here because by far the most visible race that we've seen here locally is the race for the DA's office, and this might have contributed to the high voter turnout. We're talking about Mark Skirka and Mark Gonzalez, excuse me. So what are your thoughts on the attacks? Because that race has gotten really nasty. A lot of talk about tattoos, as you just heard from Andrew's piece. Who benefits from these attacks?
You know, it could go either way, and one thing we've seen over the past several weeks and months of debates is that even when they go negative, oftentimes it has a more negative impact on the candidate who's launching those negative attacks than the actual candidate they're aimed at. And so I think there could be a backlash to Mark Skirka himself, but ultimately it's going to depend on which voters turn out and which voters are supporting Skirka and Gonzalez and the number of voters that are supporting them.
We'll shift gears a bit, talk a little bit about national politics. We've been looking at a lot of polls. Most of them show that Ted Cruz is leading in Texas. However, when we, along with A&M Corpus Christi, took our poll, they show that voters favor Trump over Cruz. Is Texas a must-win state for Cruz tonight?
Absolutely, and I think one of the things Ted Cruz even pointed out earlier when he sent out a Twitter or was part of a Twitter feed that said if you can't win your home state, then you're in a lot of trouble. And I think that's going to be indicative if Cruz doesn't win tonight.
And let's just say he doesn't win tonight. Let's just say that he loses all of the Super Tuesday states. Do you think he's going to drop out?
I believe he could drop out. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we just have time for one more question. So there is a sense across the board here that voters are just fed up with establishment voters. That really explains the support for anti-establishment politicians like Donald Trump, and then you have Bernie Sanders on the left. Do you get a sense that this is what's fueling the high voter turnout?
I think it is fueling the high turnout for the presidential candidates. How that translates down ballot to the other candidates in both the Republican and the Democratic primaries has yet to be seen. I think we'll see that closer to the close of the primary tonight.
All right, Dr. David Smith with A&M Corpus Christi, thank you so much for joining us, and you're going to be back at 6 and 10 o'clock. And our election coverage doesn't stop here. There's much, much more to come on KRIS 6 News at 6 and 10. Our Bart Betzol is going to cover the sheriff's race, and Jennifer Lida will be covering the congressional race. Of course, as you just saw moments ago, we have all of our reporters across town covering different issues and races.
Today is the biggest day so far in the race for the White House, and it is a fight for first place in Texas between GOP frontrunner Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Steve Handelsman has more on that.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz cast his vote on a Super Tuesday that's do or die for him.
Any candidate who cannot win his home state has real problems.
State polls show Cruz with a lead over Donald Trump.
I voted for Ted Cruz primarily because I don't want Donald Trump to get those electoral votes in Texas. Need to stop his momentum.
But Trump without Texas could sweep 10 of the 11 Super Tuesday states. He and his new ally Chris Christie are talking tough.
I deal with Rubio. I deal with Cruz. These guys don't know anything. They have no clue what's going on.
The next 2 weeks, his desperate opponents will say and do anything to try to tear him down.
America's top elected Republican tried today. House Speaker Paul Ryan on Trump not repudiating the KKK.
If a person wants to be the nominee of the Republican Party, there can be no evasion and no games. They must reject any group or cause that is built on bigotry.
Marco Rubio, trying to hold on 2 weeks till the vote in Florida, called Trump unelectable. And Democrat Hillary Clinton slammed Trump.
I'm going to continue to speak out against bigotry wherever I see it or hear about it.
Like Trump, Clinton could win every Super Tuesday state but one, Vermont, where Bernie Sanders hopes for a big turnout in other liberal states.
And if there's not, we're probably going to be struggling.
Like Ted Cruz if he loses Texas. I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News, Stafford, Texas.
And we want you to join the conversation on this primary day. All you have to do is use the hashtag Decision2016 when you post on social media. Our team will look through the comments all night long and even answer some of your election questions. As always, KRIS 6 will have all the primary results as well as polling locations and other voter information on our website, kristv.com.
And here's something that's pretty cool because it turns out you don't have to be an adult to get excited about today's elections.
It's okay to get excited, though.
Yeah.
Up next, we'll show you how students at Odom High School got into the Super Tuesday spirit there.
And it was a very warm day here in the coastal bend. We almost hit 90 degrees here in Corpus Christi. Started out with clouds, broke out into sunshine this afternoon, and now a front is going to go through tonight. Will it bring some badly needed rain? We'll have that forecast coming up after the break.